Hello, Sense of Things. It's Jeff here once again for another episode of The Sense of Things. And today it's just me. Ron's actually off at an event and won't be on the show today, so you'll have to put up with me and we'll make it quick. So today's show, we're going to really focus on, a little bit of fun, as we always do. We'll focus a little bit on the market and kind of give you an update after the first month and where we're at. And we'll take a look at some of the economics happening this week. There's some interesting things going on in the employment situation, which I think is very unique and I think very interesting for where we see things going forward. So stay tuned. I'll be right back on in a second. Hello, everybody. It's Jeff here. And without Ron, we're going to go through some things real quick today just to keep you up to date so that you're not behind and you know what's going on, because so many things are moving quickly. The new administration's in place and they are moving at a breakneck speed to do a lot of different things going on. And that, of course, is affecting the markets because markets don't like uncertainty. Markets don't like change very much, but it's very interesting to see what's going on. Today is, of course, Thursday, the 6th of February, which tonight at midnight is the deadline for the government workers to decide if they want to retire or take a package and all that. So that's going to have some effect on the employment situation. So what I wanted to start off first, though, is let's do something a little fun, and we will focus on some fun t-shirts. So I saw this website and it made me chuckle and I felt like I needed to share it with you guys. So give me a second here to bring it up. All right. So our first t-shirt here, somebody waiting in line for whatever she's waiting for. But on the back of her shirt, it says, "You can either expect me to work well with others or pass a drug test. I cannot do both." So thought that was a good laugh here. Another one's a gentleman with a very large center section and a map of the Hawaiian Islands on it on a blue shirt. So he's the ocean, and I thought that was actually pretty funny. This one, a gentleman, he created his own t-shirt, put a little sign on his back that says, "Please don't talk to me. I have no control and will to talk, or I have no self-control and will talk to you for 2 hours and get no work done." So I thought that was awesome. How about a Hawaiian shirt? So a Hawaiian shirt with all kinds of different Hawaiian shirts on it. I thought this was great if you are having a luau party. Be perfect for you if you're having a luau party anytime soon. This one I thought was amazing. Guy going in for a job interview, and on his shirt it says "New employee.exe execute. Do you want to hire? Click yes." So just absolutely genius idea. Love the shirt. All right, here's a good one for those of you that are into oil and everything. You have the solid, you have the liquid, and you have the gas. So the 3 states of matter. Last but not least, probably one of my favorite movies of all time was Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And this gentleman who's missing an arm has the greatest sense of humor ever, because on it, if you know the movie, there is a knight who ends up getting all his limbs chopped off by King Arthur, and he's missing an arm on the thing saying "'tis but a scratch." So for those of you that are Monty Python fans, you'll get the joke. If not, rent the movie because you must live through and see it at once. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the economy and what's going on. This week, we're really starting to get what I would consider the first economic reports under the new administration. Administration's only been in place for about 16 days, 17 days at this point, but we're starting to see some of the effects of what's going on. A couple things that I thought were really interesting. This is off the Econo Day calendar. This is actually free to the public. So if you want to go in and look at this stuff, if you're an economic geek like I am, certainly go in. You can go to econoday.com and pull up the calendar, and it'll give you all this stuff, and you can get in here and see these. One of the things that Ron and I have been talking about this for a long time, when you started to look at all the manufacturing indices around the country, the Richmond Fed, the New York Fed, all this, we've seen the manufacturing just be down, massively down over the last really 18 months. We haven't really seen a positive month. So this is the Institute of Supply Management Manufacturing Index. And this was really interesting. So the prior event, so this was the previous month, we were down 13 on that scale. This month, we popped up to positive 3. Now, does that mean that the world is changing? Does that mean that we're out of the woods and people are looking at this differently? No. It just means that the consensus was around 49, which that's basically 50 is the even point, and we were at 50.9. Now, you've seen but there's been some malaise really for a pretty good chunk of the last quarter. And then all of a sudden, we've seen this move towards the positive. So something we need to keep our eyes on. It is actually interesting to see that we're actually starting to move, hopefully, in the positive direction. Another big one this week, or I won't say big, it was an important one, was international trade and goods and services. That actually was down, but it was within consensus. We still have a massive deficit of trade in this country. That may change with the president's threats on tariffs and things like that. But that's not going to be something that's going to get fixed overnight. And it's something that we'll keep an eye on. It's certainly important because certainly we want to be able to sell what we make here overseas. And it's not always easy to do. This one caught me by surprise a little bit. I think it's the Energy Institute of America or something like that, petroleum status report. This is really interesting. So crude oil inventories in the prior report were 3.5 million barrels. We're at 8.7 million barrels as of this report. That's just weird, and it's something we need to keep an eye on. We still are down on distillates, which that's the things that are used to make industrial chemicals and things like that. So still down. Gasoline inventories are down a little bit, but the crude oil inventories just shot up for some reason. And that's just something we need to keep an eye on. That can change weekly. 8 million barrels is not that much in the grand scheme of things. I think the most important thing that we saw today, let me go back, actually, it was yesterday. One of the most important things that we saw yesterday, and it's going to be interesting to see tomorrow, the employment report, ADP employment report. And Ron and I have talked about this a lot. ADP, they're the largest payroll processor in the country, so they should have their hands on who's getting hired, who's getting laid off, all that kind of good stuff. The consensus report was 153,000 jobs. It actually came in at 183,000. One of the really interesting parts about that was a 40,000 increase across the board of private sector employment. Now, if you followed the show, we've been talking about these employment reports, and for the last probably 9 to, let's call it 12 months, the majority of new jobs created have actually been in the government sector. There's a government hiring freeze going on right now. And as I said at the beginning of the show, today is the deadline at midnight for federal employees that want to take the buyout package. And I guess as of this morning, 40,000 people have decided to take the package. That is well below the 5 to 10% that the administration was wanting in reduction in force. So that's 40,000 less. Now, the scary part when I really think about this, when I first started back years and years ago in the industry, I worked for Fidelity Investments, and we were a 32,000 employee company at the time that I was hired. This is 40,000 people, and it's not even 5% of the federal workforce. So that just tells you how ginormous the workforce is in the federal government. So what you should expect to see is two things, I think. One is jobless claims, which today came in a little higher, 219,000. It was a consensus of 215, so pretty much within the range, up from 2,000 or 208,000. I would expect that number to go up significantly over the next several months because you're going to have at least 40,000 people out of the government, and I don't know if private employment is going to be able to make up that difference, because it may. If you looked at the numbers from today and the ADP report, they basically washed each other out at that point. So something to keep an eye on, because if you're not working, even if you get an 8-month package or a 6-month package, you're probably not going to be spending as much. Those federal employees leaving the workforce, they're going to have to get absorbed into the private workspace, or I would assume a lot of those people that went for the package probably were retiring relatively soon. And that's a situation where they would have been out of the workforce anyhow. The difference is there's a hiring freeze on in a lot of positions. So the government will not necessarily be bringing in new people for a while and seeing where everything is absorbed into. The last thing is employment situation, and that's the real numbers that are important. The ADP number is good. It's usually a pretty accurate look at the private sector employment, but the employment situation, that is everything. So that's governmental hiring across the board, from federal government down to state and local and everything else. We'll get a handle on hiring across the board there, but I think it's going to be a fluid situation moving forward and something that we need to keep our eye on. So the last thing I want to look at is just the markets in general right now. We have started a really good year. As of yesterday, we're up about 3.4% on the S&P 500. So it's a good start for the year. It's been a pretty volatile start for the year. When you look at the beginning of 2025, we started good, and then we hit that little section a couple weeks ago with the Chinese internet ChatGPT version, DeepSync, and that caused a whole bunch of havoc in the markets because they basically said, or they've said, that they created this thing for only $5 million, which, if anybody understands how technology works, unless they were getting money from somebody else or they were able to steal or black market chips or something like that, where they were able to get their hands on the kind of computing power, it doesn't smell right, is all I would say. Maybe they did it. Maybe they're amazing. I don't know. It's going to be what you need to see, or what you need to be looking at is that sustainable? We got a good recovery after that, and then the markets have been a little sideways since. If we look at the QQQs, which are the NASDAQ, the S&P and the NASDAQ are the telling point. And this year, once again, we're up a little bit. We're up about 2% on the NASDAQ for the year, but we've seen a lot of volatility, a lot of movement in the market this first month of the year. Once again, same hit with the Chinese, not quite as much of a run back up. And then we were down and back and forth and all that. So we're a little sideways from mid-month on. And I would expect to see that for at least the next several months. What's affecting that? I think first and foremost, you've got to say that the administration's having some effect on this, because they are moving at such a rapid clip that the market's trying to absorb and figure out where this all happens. A lot of good things have happened out of this. We're hopefully going to be able to sustain the ceasefire. We cross our fingers, but we know the reality of the situation, that hopefully we're able to get through a few more months getting hostages back and at least less fighting there. And I know the administration's working on the whole Ukraine situation, which seems like the world has completely forgotten about them. So hopefully we'll start to see some negotiations in the Ukraine war, which we're dumping a whole lot of money and our treasure into these fights, and hopefully we'll stop doing that. You are seeing the administration working rapidly on the reduction in the government, and reduction in government waste. I know There's a whole lot of people that are mad at Elon Musk because he's going in and proposing cuts to all this. First and foremost, he is not in the position to close things down. He's in the position to say, this is something that we see as waste. The administration makes those decisions. So I think people need to cut him a little slack there. And it's not unconstitutional for him to make suggestions. So it's interesting to me to see the people that have done virtually nothing and in fact raised the expenses in the government to whine and complain about it. That's just my point of view. It's not Ron's point of view. But I feel like we're at a point where the reality is we just need to let the administration do their thing. Let's figure out where there's waste. And if there's fraud and waste, let's get rid of it, because then that ensures that things that are important, like Social Security, Medicare, are they're going to continue to be there and support the people that they were designed to support. All of us that have paid into that system, we want to be able to have that system exist in the future. The only way we can do that is to cut some waste from the government. And there's a lot of it that's out there. It's interesting to see. This is the first time in my life I've ever seen the government cutting spending, no matter what administration's been in there. Let's see how it works. Certainly, it's going to have some spill down effect into corporations, which is the other part that I would say. I think defense is probably going to get built up, but then there's going to be other contracts across the board, and how that all filters down, I don't think we know yet, and we'll just have to keep an eye on it. So that may have some effect on the markets here as we get rolling in. That's about it for the day. I just wanted to say thank y'all for putting up with me today and putting up with my opinions on this. But I think we're in a really good position for this year. The fact that companies are comfortably starting to hire people, albeit that it's just one little report, that tells me that corporations and businesses are starting to say, okay, I feel like I can hire some people at this point. 40,000 is not enough. We need to hire lots more people. We're going to need to absorb those people that are coming out of federal government and find them jobs in the private sector. Hopefully, the private sector will offset the job losses from the government sector. So thanks a lot, and we will see you guys back here the next time. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you are commenting. I've had some really good conversations with folks back and forth, asking questions. Shout out to a couple folks recently that on one of the shows I had shrunken a screen and didn't realize it. So thanks a lot for making that or commenting on it. And I was able to get the problem fixed and relaunch a new show or relaunch the show again. So you guys make the show. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you guys back here the very next time.